I, 25 female, have a best friend, 26 female, named Veronica. Veronica got engaged to soon-to-be husband 6 months ago, and they've been dating for 3 years. Her fiance, 29 male, is a great guy and treats her very well. However, his mom, on the other hand, is a pain in the butt. Ever since her fiance introduced her to Veronica, she's been giving her hell. She even went as far as throwing a birthday for Veronica's fiance, and she didn't invite Veronica and I. We didn't find out until Veronica's sister-in-law told us and asked us why we weren't there. Veronica hates the way mother-in-law treats her, but stays quiet to keep the peace. She made me promise to stay quiet as well, to ensure her husband doesn't find out, because she fears that he will take his mother's side and break up with her. I've been holding my tongue until recently when we had a dinner party with both sides of the family, and Veronica invited me. While we were waiting for the food to be ready, there was a knock at the door. Veronica's mother-in-law enthusiastically runs to get the door like she was expecting someone, but we all thought everyone was here. When she opened the door, it was some random woman, or so I thought. Veronica told me that it was her fiance's ex. I was livid. I was ready to smack Veronica's mother-in-law, but Veronica begged me not to. I respected her wishes, but she looked like she was on the verge of tears. We all sat for dinner, and I couldn't think of a more awkward moment than this one. No one said a word until Veronica's mother-in-law spoke and introduced her son's ex to everyone and acts like it was normal that she was here. I kept my mouth shut until she started comparing Veronica to her fiance's ex, saying stuff like, "I wish Veronica could look like you look, such in shape, unlike Veronica, who's more on the chubby side," or, "You and my son were great together, you should try again to see if you could work things out." Veronica ran to the bathroom crying. I lost it and started screaming at her, saying she's disgusting for doing that to Veronica, and you deserve anything that comes your way. Then, without thinking, I picked up a glass of wine bottle and poured it on her. She screamed at me, and Veronica's fiance demanded that I apologize, but I just ignored him, grabbed Veronica, and took us home. I expected Veronica to be angry, but she wasn't. But she and I have been getting attacked by her fiance and his relatives, that she and I apologized to his mother and everyone else for ruining the dinner party. They're all calling me an a-hole, but Veronica and my family think I did nothing wrong. So, am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Veronica needs to realize that if her fiance won't stick up for her now, he never will. She deserves better than this mama's boy. She needs to kick him to the curb. Good for you for standing up for your friend. Not the a-hole. Pouring the wine on that poor excuse of a woman was a bit wasteful. I'd have taken the bottle home instead. But honestly, that was a sweet move. I hope V ditches him. That's no way to treat a fiancé. Not the a-hole. Sounds like Veronica needs to quit that entire situation with the quickness. Mother-in-law isn't going to get any better once they're married, and fiancé has already shown that he's going to pick mommy over wifey. Update. I showed V all of your comments, and she's finally seeing the light. She told me she realizes that the treatment she's getting from her mother-in-law and her fiancé isn't going to change, so she decided to end the engagement. She said tomorrow she's going back to the house to talk to both him and his mother about what happened, and she's going to let out what she's been holding in for almost 4 years, and trust me, it's a lot. Second update. Veronica, her sister-in-law, and I went to her fiancé's house and confronted him. Veronica let out all that crap she's been holding back, and as her best friend, I can say I've never been prouder. She broke off her engagement with her now ex-fiancé and has never been happier. Her ex has been blowing up her phone and DMs trying to get back together with her. He's even following her around and hanging out at her job waiting for her. Don't worry, she's threatening him with a restraining order. I, 28 female, have a brother, Mike, 34 male, who's married to Lori, 32 female, and she has a sister, Amy, 28 female. My brother and sister-in-law have been together for 7 years and married for 3. Since the first year of their relationship, I was always aware of Amy, but never really close, nor did I spend any time with her. It wasn't until during the actual wedding planning that I started to get to know her better, and we clicked. Not in a bestie sort of way, but I would say at least a step above in-law status. Around 24, I met my fiancé, Kai, 29 male, and he's a really great guy. He's smart, kind, good-looking, well-traveled, speaks multiple languages. I could go on. I was so excited when he proposed, because he did it in his newly purchased house and told me that this was the home he wanted us to raise our future children in. Up until this point, Kai and I had a mutual agreement on social media to mark ourselves as in a relationship, but never post pics or give any details to avoid drama, i.e. noisy family members. But those close to us knew what the deal was. Because of this, while Amy was aware that I was in a relationship, she didn't know with who. When Amy saw the pics, she messaged me wanting details, which I thought was a little weird since she knew I was in a relationship. That it was 2+ years long, the person's name, what he did for a living, and a few of his interests. Amy wanted to know when and how we met, and if Kai had ever mentioned any previous girlfriends before. I asked her why she wanted to know that, and she responded with saying how Kai seemed like such a sweet guy, and just wanted to know how our love story began. I told her that I'd met Kai, and after a couple months of knowing each other, we became an item and were in love ever since. I kept going on and on about how happy and lucky I was, and prayed that I wouldn't make the same mistakes as his idiot ex. Amy asked me what I meant, and I told her how Kai's first love was his high school sweetheart, who wanted to go on a break while in college for a few weeks. Kai mentioned how he didn't think that was a good idea, but was convinced that it would be better in the long run and agreed. However, it horribly backfired, and 2 weeks after the break, Kai dumped her. Kai talked about how crazy she got that he decided to delete his profile, make a new one, but still rarely goes on there because of how stalkerish she could be. I laughed, calling Kai's ex pathetic, and how she only wanted a break so she could cheat with no consequence, and ended up losing a great guy. I didn't hear from Amy again, but Lori called in and berated me for insulting her sister. And that's how I found out that she was Kai's ex. Am I the a-hole? Edit. Just for context, Amy and Lori are technically half-sisters and didn't really become involved in each other's lives until they were adults. So Kai never met Lori as Amy's sister. Not the a-hole. I do find it weird that you've been with this guy for about 4 years, and the relationship is serious enough for him to propose, but that your brother and his wife aren't aware of who he was until now. Other than that, you stated the truth, and it was an unfortunate coincidence that your sister-in-law's sister was the ex. Not the a-hole. How could you know it was her? Only a move here is calling the ex an idiot when you did not know her and only had his side of the story. You shouldn't call people names when you don't know them. But you can love who you want. But maybe run a little background check on them. He could be the bad guy here. I'm thinking controlling type, but he could also be a good guy. I just think it is funny that he hasn't met your family in 2 years. Not the a-hole. First of all, she was being messy trying to check on y'all's relationship knowing she was his ex. Second, she should have minded her business. Like, ma'am. You wanted to know the story, now you got it. Third, you had no way of knowing they were ever even possibly connected. How could you? He never said a name, showed any pics. She was too busy trying to be slick and nosy. That's on her. My husband, both 25, and I adopted our daughter, 17 female, 2 years ago. It was a complicated thing. She's the daughter of one of my ex-friends and was at a high-risk environment. I took her in when she was 14 and eventually adopted her a year after that. She does call us mom and dad, and she's super close to us and loves to spend time with my husband because they share the same interests. My husband also has a sister, P, 19 female, who's quite close to him. They lost their parents when my hubby was 20, so he took her in and raised her since then. I like his sister, but she can be quite possessive towards him, and kind of mean to my daughter because she sees her as competition for my husband's fatherly love. This has caused O to retract herself every time P is home, or she's around my husband. My daughter has told me that my sister-in-law sometimes makes jokes about being adopted so old. My husband and I had tried to make her stop, but my sister-in-law always says that she's just joking, and starts to cry, so my husband feels bad and ends the discussion. 3 days ago, my husband invited O to test some cars because he wants to buy a new one. She said yes, so excited, and then P said that she wanted to go too. I could see that my daughter didn't like this, but didn't say anything either. They're supposed to leave 3 hours later, but 30 or 40 minutes after that, O told my husband that she couldn't go because a friend of hers had come to finish a project and she forgot about it. P totally snapped at this and told her she was lying and to just say that she didn't want her around. O said that she wasn't lying, but B wouldn't have it and kept attacking my daughter until eventually she ran to her room crying. My husband and I scolded P, but she basically ignored us. Just before they leave, my daughter's friend knocks at the door and he has a bunch of stuff with him to finish some project, proving her right. We let him in. My daughter comes down but doesn't look at P's or my husband's face. They say they'll be back, but I stop them and kindly ask the boy to go to my daughter's room upstairs, please. When we're alone, I told my sister-in-law that she has to apologize to my daughter because enough is enough. She laughs, thinking I'm joking, but I stood my ground, and she looks to my husband, who to her surprise agrees with me. P says that she reacted because it was too much of a coincidence, and I told her that it doesn't matter, and this isn't a one-time thing, so she has to apologize, or she has to go back to her room, because I won't have someone picking on my daughter in her own house. My sister-in-law starts to cry, gives a half-hearted apology, and just gets out crying. My husband says that I did the right thing, but making her cry was too much, and that I'm an a-hole for that. He drove her back to her dorm that same day. He's not speaking to me, and my daughter is all weird around him. Edit. Hey, I didn't expect this to get that much attention. First of all, I want to thank everyone for their advice, and I want to address some things. 1. O is already attending therapy. She's been since I adopted her, and I'm doing it too. 2. We know that P's attachment to my husband is unhealthy, but O's too. P was closer to her dad, and O has a horrible story with men, physical, emotional, etc. My husband has been some of the few men she's felt comfortable with, the other ones being some teachers and my dad. She loves my husband with all of her heart, because she always wanted to know how it is like to have a dad who loves you. She told me that herself, and I guess that at this point it just makes her sad. 3. I've been with my husband since high school, before his parents' passing. P and I were close, but she held on to my husband with all she had after the incident. I understood it. I also understand that for my husband, it was too much too quick. Their grandparents and aunt offered to house P, but she begged my husband not to let them take her, so we moved to my husband's old house and began to raise P together. When O came around, P and her used to fight a lot. O's behavior changed progressively during these years, thanks to therapy, and because she went out of survival mode. But at the beginning, she used to be too snarky, passive-aggressive, and cold. O was able to grow out of this phase, but P never did, and the resentment is still in my sister-in-law. 4. I tried to get my husband and my sister-in-law in therapy a year after the incident, but they both refused. My husband wanted to show his grandparents that he was able to take care of his sis, and his grandpa believes that therapy is for the weak. 5. While I see my sister-in-law as a kid, she has rejected me as her mother, and I'm okay with that. I won't force myself on her, and that's why I don't call her my daughter. But I love her, and I care for her as much as I do for O. But I can't do anything without it seeming like I'm overstepping my boundaries with her. With O, it's more easy. I'm legally and emotionally her mother. 6. This is not the first time I defended O, as some of you may think. I've done it before. I even left my husband for a while a few months ago, but he came begging us to come back. Truth is, my husband loves our daughter too, but I know that having her sister so young and losing his parents at the same time ducked him up. He doesn't want to let anybody down, yet doesn't know what's the right thing to do. If he turns to O, he's betraying P. If he turns to P, he's letting O down. Lastly, I talked to my husband an hour before, and I told him that this is a hill I'll die on. He either attends therapy with our daughter and I, opens his eyes to P's manipulation, or we'll split and divorce in a year when O is of legal age, and she can't be taken away from me. He cried a lot, and I know I hurt his feelings, but as many of you said, I won't risk my daughter anymore. I'm currently waiting for my dad to come pick us up. Nope. Don't fall for those crocodile tears. At best, she was crying because she had to face consequences for her actions. At worst, to manipulate you and your husband into deciding it wasn't really that bad. Either way, she wasn't crying because she was genuinely remorseful for her behavior, or she wouldn't have given a half-hearted apology. Not the a-hole. Stand your ground on this. Not the a-hole. It seems like P cries whenever she's confronted about her behavior, because she knows your husband will back down when she brings on the tears. Not the a-hole. Your husband is blinded by the fact that he has been taking care of this family member for so long. He excuses her bad behavior because it's tricky for him. He probably knows that he's her person, so he doesn't want to alienate her. However, he isn't doing her any favors by letting her off easy for her poor treatment of your daughter. You did the right thing, and if she cried, then so be it. Probably because she feels bad about how she's been acting, in which case she 100% deserves that. Remind your husband that enabling bad behavior, especially the poor treatment of others, will be much more detrimental to her life, career, future, than seeing her get upset. I don't know much about my fiance's, 39 male, first wife Maria, 50s. The background is that she used him for citizenship, treated him terribly, and divorced him after the 10 years of marriage. I had never met her before this. I, 27, was out to lunch with my future sister-in-law, 23, and my fiance's daughter, Sarah, from the first marriage, 19. We three ladies get along together, often doing lunch together. My fiance's family speaks Spanish as their first language. I do not speak it, so we are chatting in English, going about lunch and going shopping later on for some college supplies for my Sarah. We have agreed not to do the whole stepmom thing and be friends. I hear the word cabrona from my sister-in-law, and Sarah looks up to see her mother. Sarah and her mom have had a rocky relationship since Sarah moved out at 16. Maria started arguing with Sarah. My sister-in-law joins in. I'm not exactly sure what's being said, but we all got up to leave, and Maria just realized who I was. She starts yelling in front of everyone that I stole her husband. They were divorced 2 years before I met him, and now I'm stealing her daughter. At this point, I lay 100 on the table for lunch and just go shopping like planned. Maria called me a W and said I was taking my ex's money. I finally had it. I said something unlike you. I'm not marrying him for citizenship, but because I love him. This is my money. I don't use my men as a payday. Get some class. I left with Sarah and sister-in-law. They kept saying Maria was like that. She loves drama, and that's why Sarah isn't on speaking terms with her mother. A lady who saw the scene in the restaurant called me a W and homewrecker in a clothing store. She wouldn't leave me alone and followed us out of the store, shouting aggressions at us until we flagged down security. The encounter has been bothering me for the last few days. Was I the a-hole here? Not the a-hole, just some nosy woman who didn't know what was going on and decided on the small bit she heard to take sides in a stranger's issue, which is never a good move. Frankly, the entire scene was low class on all sides, but I don't honestly know that I would do better if accosted in public that way, so I can't judge you on that. People should really mind their own business. If I try really hard, I can understand a stranger giving off-the-cuff comment, but following? What the duck? You were not the a-hole, but I suggest not to engage in the future, especially in front of the daughter. She was being an a-hole, but it's better to not give ammunition. Not the a-hole. If not for yourself, you attempted to get Sarah and future sister-in-law away from Maria's drama. You stood up for them and tried to go on with your day. As for the onlooker, they don't know a thing about your situation and decided to meddle. Yikes. Sounds like they had nothing better to do with their life.